Welcome to the sixth and final session of MINEX Kazakhstan Mining and Exploration Forum 2023. The mining and metallurgical industry is one of the three largest emitters of greenhouse gases. Green transformation, climate management and mining waste management are important for protecting the environment and promoting sustainable development. The transition to carbon neutrality will require huge investments in new products and energy technologies. Kazakhstan is taking steps towards promoting sustainable development and green transformation. The country has committed to reaching carbon neutrality by 2060. As part of this journey, it plans to accelerate the transition to renewable energy sources and plant 2 billion trees in the next 5 years to increase carbon absorption. In addition, the new environmental code, effective since July 2021, makes climate change adaptation a legal norm for sectoral and regional policy planning. The 50 largest companies, accounting for 80% of emissions in Kazakhstan, are expected to upgrade to the best available technologies by 2025. The stability of the tax burden and the tax environment is an important factor affecting the investment planning and green development of mining companies in Kazakhstan. This stability can provide companies with the confidence to make long-term investments in new technologies to promote sustainable development and reduce the industry's carbon footprint. At this session, experts and industry representatives will discuss the changes in environmental regulatory requirements and ESG transformation of the Kazakhstan's mining industry.
And on that basis, good afternoon everybody. Welcome to the finale, the climax of MINEX. Save everything up just for us. So of course we have the best speakers selected for your entertainment, for your information today. So we had this wonderful introduction, and everybody's been asked to vote on this question. I hope everybody has taken that opportunity to do so. Oh, got to be closer. All right. And it looks like there's a lot of opinions that it could be the reasons for the challenges for the transformation or the transition to a low carbon economy. There could be many factors. So hopefully in today's discussions, you will learn a lot more and you will find out what steps can be taken by the companies, by everybody here, to be able to play their part in the transition towards the low carbon economy. We're not just going to be talking about that today, we're also going to be talking about some closure, and we're also going to be talking about social impacts on social licenses. So on that basis, a note to all of the speakers, I think you've all been briefed. We have a wonderful 10 minutes each, which I appreciate is not nearly enough time to do justice for your presentations. There will be little warning signs coming up, and then if you fail to see the little warning signs, there will be a big hammer which comes up later. All right. So on that notice, I would like to welcome up Alexei Nuzhny, who's going to talk about the solutions for sustainable development of industrial manufacturers, ESG, from words to deeds. Alexei.
Thank you so much, Dave. Здравствуйте.
Good evening, distinguished participants of the conference. I have an honor to speak first at this session. And maybe I have to introduce myself and say a couple of words about my company. It is a sub-company. It is not known to everyone. I'm Director General of a sub-company in the region of CIS, Russia and CIS countries. Prior to the pandemic, I was responsible for the activity of the company in Middle East and Africa. Pandemic changed everything. Sub-company is a public American corporation that is represented at the New York Stock Exchange. What we are dealing with technologies in the welding and cutting of metals. Where is the connection between metals and mining sector? I don't think there is should be an explanation. Some of the companies somehow use these technologies in your work, and I would assure you that these technologies are very important for your employees. And you see some information on the slide about the company. It is related to financial conditions of the company. Mid-cap in terms of my background, but we are known very much in the market, and we are global leaders in providing solutions for metal cutting and welding. So, your welders are the persons who work in your companies. They absolutely familiar with yellow and black color, which is a brand of our company, but do you know what welding is? Great. Have you ever welded yourself? Raise your hands. Not so many people, but still, it's great. You understand that the welding is not only electrodes, there are a lot of things related to welding. And if you collect all these things, it will be very much directly related to ESG agenda, to sustainable development agenda, in which sectors do we operate. Wherever the metals are applied, these technologies are also applied on them. Non-breaking connections happen. Actually, 75% of companies that somehow work with metals, they would have processes related to welding. And I would like to mention that in Central Asia, and especially in Kazakhstan, the mining sector is a priority sector for us, together with oil and gas. So with your companies, I'm sure we are cooperating somehow. Why ESG is important for us? Why this abbreviation is of so much meaning? I said that our company is public and it has significant history. The company was established in 1904, and I would like to assure you, not only in the most recent years when ESG became a super trendy abbreviation, but much more earlier. The company leadership, the management took care about the issues of sustainable development and safety on our impact on environmental agenda, on social issues, issues of governance in the corporation. But being a public company, all requirement of a Security and Exchange Commission of the U.S. Discussed in the board of directors, and we have a committee in the board that deals with these issues related to sustainable development. I'm sure that you'll keep on hearing it during the presentations today. In 2015, if I am not wrong, the United Nations raised those 17 items related to sustainable development, and in our corporation we are trying to approach all the issues based on practical ideas. So we have selected 4 of 17 items which are related to the activities of the corporation in the regions where we operate, which are related to our employees, regulators, and clients. These are the 4 items are shown on the slide. Yes, out of doubt. Some important moment that you are started thinking about when we are talking about ESG can be provided in this presentation, but the most important issue for us in managing our staff is number of recordable incidents, the situations when the health of our employees is jeopardized by threats. You know, the company which produces welding materials, equipment, we have plants all over the globe, and the industrial safety becomes a very important process, and I believe that the dynamics towards the reduction of the number of these cases is self-explainable. Even in the manufacturing, it means that what we have to face water consumption, gas consumption, wastes, and here we can also track the dynamics, and we set quite ambitious objectives to ourselves up to 2030. The strategy has been already established, and it is very important, especially with regard of the waste. We are decreasing the share of the waste which are not processable. HSE as social means in this abbreviation. So we have a production, we have traders, we have persons who are working with the clients, we have a commercial team. But for us, it is important to keep the same standards for all. We take significant care on the health of our employees and the feeding. It's difficult maybe to astonish you, but I believe that you support some social programs and there are some benefits in standard social package, but it was every year, despite of economy of funds, we take care of economic efficiency, financial indicators, but we try to find an opportunity to expand benefits for our staff. Our staff can go to the gyms, they have very good canteens, we call it a screen. During the COVID, the screens have been established so as people could save themselves against COVID. And not always it is possible to work in a remote mode. So we have been thinking on how we can save our people.
Some social activity, social events, we are also in favor for that. We have such a program which is called Spark. It's non-financial motivation for our staff. One staff, for example, can say, my colleague did something that is out of scope of their responsibilities. Let's praise him. This is the Spark nomination, as we call it. Once a month, we all congratulate this person. This is not money. We just congratulate this person. This is just recognition from all our staff. We do it every quarter, and then annual winner gets some interesting benefits. Some things for us ESG, we try to take it in very practical way. Nice words, long speeches, this is okay. It needs to be done. It's a part of our job. Also, obligatory accountability and reporting of our corporation. Our annual and quarter reports, so we have to mention ESG, what we are doing here, it's obligation, but we are doing very practical things in ESG. For example, like better lighting in our premises, at the same time reducing the energy consumption. Our factories, our plants, including my plant where I am operating at, we are located in a very harsh climate. That's why it's very important to keep heat inside and keep the premises warm. But all the process aimed at the optimization of the processes, including savings of all the commodities and heat as well. And for us, it's a very important thing. Of course, here we are talking about water. Such a simple thing as batteries. You know, these small batteries, they have some aggressive chemicals inside them, and then we motivate our staff to bring these batteries, used batteries, for clean recycling, for clean utilization. Our company is 130 years old, so 120 years of our company. So our company was established 120 years ago in 1904 by Swedish engineer Oskar Kjellberg. It was he is famous for the inventing of electrodes used in the welding work now. And during these 120 years, we were thinking how we can bring ESG at the proper level. But besides being the head of a large branch of our company in this not simple region, I'm also a professor. I'm also a lecturer at the Moscow University, and I teach financial and corporate discipline. The question from my students is, we are learning financing. Why we are learning also ESG? And my answer is, don't be illusional. The main thing corporation is working for is to increase value of the company for our shareholders, increase the cost of the company at the market. This is the most important thing. But if you do not think about the environmental things, social things, supporting the personnel, you will not promote your company. And now the companies are refusing to work with the suppliers, supplying companies that are not paying attention to ESGs. So that's why our clients also should be in the same level playing field. So I ask the question, have you ever welded? What is electrode? You know, and electrode environmentally is not a friendly thing. So we have the sparks of metals and so on and so forth. But how we can improve the environmental part of welding, how we can enhance protection of the environment. Let's have electrode very long one and put it on some wire. So that's why now we have welding wire. It's like kilometers long, and this is a very big part, and the long electrode is is inside this box, and why it is environmentally friendly, because it can be used for a long time. The box is a paper one, carton one, and that's what we did to protect environment. Welding equipment, you remember, it's a very heavy, huge machine, very heavy. You cannot hold it with your hands and polluting the air. What we can do to improve the environment around yourself by using this equipment. This kind of welding equipment, so they are already the things of the past. Now everyone is using inverter welding devices. They are small ones, mobile ones, and here we are taking into account not only environment but also social factor, because welders, they are working in a very difficult working conditions, hard working conditions, and if the welding device is small one, not heavy one, if you are not if you are taking it in your hands, it doesn't damage your back, your spine. So that's why it's very important for welders. And also, this device was developed taking into account the European standards. I will not talk about everything what we are doing. Just a couple of words. Environment, ecology. When we pronounce this word, we imagine these wind turbines. But to build this, it's very complicated. So you have to use welding machines also in these conditions, and the materials that are used to weld in these hot conditions, they are different, but these materials, so they are environmentally friendly. Also, we are working with medical gases as well. Talking about the helmet, why do welders need helmets? Because it's quite costly. And there was an answer from one person: do you want to read fairy tales to your grandsons? If you don't have good helmet with good glass protecting your face, then you lose your eyesight very soon, and you will not be able to read fairy tales to your grandson. Digital solutions, we also pay attention to that, implementing them in our activity as well. Think in your facilities, in your enterprises, how you can be friendly to the environment and your staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Alexei. For our next presentation, we're actually going to go online and bring in Chris Parry from DataMine. He's going to talk about the value of ESG in your digital transformation journey. Chris, are you there? Chris is currently in Australia, so he has stayed up nicely for us. Do we have Chris?
Hello everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Chris Parry, and I am the VP of ESG here at DataMine Software. Today, I wanted to speak with you about realizing the benefits of your ESG data as part of your digital strategy. But rather than presenting to you about DataMine, our company, and more specifically our ESG software, I wanted to share with you some real practical guidance and advice that you can use in your ESG transformation. ESG itself, we know it's not a new thing. It's been around for a really long time. It's just been called something new, and that's mainly influenced from the capital and financial markets. But what is interesting is the growing and continued awareness of ESG and the importance of this within the mining community. So over the last 3 years, ESG has consistently been a top priority for mining companies globally. And it seems that this isn't going to change anytime soon. So it's become essential for companies to have well-defined, transparent, and communicated sustainability goals and targets. And these need to be accompanied with the necessary strategies initiatives, and tools to implement them. Which then asks the question, what's the biggest challenge facing mining companies globally in implementing and integrating ESG into their business? The first major obstacle is accessing relevant, timely, and accurate ESG data. And it's quite common to find that data is isolated in multiple systems, in spreadsheets, or even on paper. And this makes it incredibly difficult for critical information such as scoped emissions, waste data, health and safety, regulatory governance information. It makes it difficult for this information to be accessed by those who really need it. The second major obstacle facing mining companies globally is being able to proactively measure company performance against targets and also to measure impact. This is where technology can come into play to help solve and address these two issues. So leveraging digital technologies. Now, it can do the obvious things like allowing companies to streamline data collection and use methods such as workflow and automation. But it needs to be taken much further than this. As you're looking to implement digital solutions to support your ESG journey, we suggest looking for solutions that go beyond the traditional data collection and reporting methods. A key element here is to have technology that can support your sustainability management processes. Now, this is achieved by embedding your company business processes into technology platforms itself. That allows for you and your company to achieve its sustainability goals with the technology. Monitoring company performance in real time provides you with the foresight, be able to do trend analysis, and have the opportunity to implement different strategies to ensure that you achieve your company's ESG goals and targets. Having a technology platform that can analyze large quantities of data and the multitude and different types of data. So that way you can proactively identify risk and again, give you the opportunity to implement effective controls to mitigate these risks and incidences from occurring. And finally, technology can help you streamline your ESG reporting so that you can comply with the various standards and frameworks that are out there today. Another area of consideration is looking at the functional aspects of the software or technology platform and whether it has the breadth of capability not only to address the immediate needs of your business today, but has the scalability to support other areas that might be important to you and your business in the future. And I'm sure that you would agree that the list of ESG topics is growing exponentially, as we can see from the sample here. Perhaps an immediate focus is focusing on health, safety, injury management, or training and certifications. But how will the technology support your evolving business needs into the future, such as maybe scoped emissions, stakeholder engagement, supply pre-qualifications, and so on? And ESG data, it can't be treated in isolation. It needs to be used in multiple areas and by different departments. Environmental data may have particular relevance in other areas such as social and governance. For example, a company's water disposal method may have adverse effects in biodiversity in the local ecosystem, but also may have an impact in terms of governance and possibly breaches in regulations that may attract penalties and fines. It could also have a social impact in terms of people's health and safety, maybe affecting drinking water. Could also impact company brand reputation. So it's important to have a technology platform where data is centralized, can be accessed by multiple areas within the business, so it can be effectively analyzed. From a technical perspective, it's also important to have a platform that can not only be functionally expanded upon, but also has the flexibility for you to implement what you only need now. Rather than trying to do everything at once, it may be better just to focus on one particular area or one particular pain point within your business. Does the technology have the capability to implement what you only need up front? Secondly, integration is also key. We know that your business has made significant investments in technology. So we need to be able to not only protect those investments, but we need to be able to integrate and enhance upon its capability, therefore providing you greater value. Privacy and security of information is always essential, and we need to have measures in place to protect sensitive data. But the technology should also have the ability to have controls and configurations in place so that you have access, or you have control over the people within your business who have access to the relevant information that is relevant to their job, rather than having perhaps system-wide access to all information. And finally, accessibility, whether that's in terms of leveraging cloud technology for ease of access, having usability and experiences for our people, perhaps leveraging mobile applications, but also offering external access to maybe third-party companies as well that are important to your business, such as suppliers and contractors. And as we saw earlier, there are a number of ESG topics that is just growing exponentially. And they're all important within their own right. And technology now, today, has the ability to not only support your business in terms of compliance, but we can go beyond compliance. We can go and start measuring the impact of the programs, initiatives, and the investments, possibly contributions, that your business has made. So in the area of social, for example, whilst we can easily account and measure contributions a company has made to perhaps local and regional businesses in terms of, I guess, money and people that we've hired, but what has been the added benefit and what has been the impact that this has made to their business, to the local surrounding communities? What was the realized benefit to people? This is where technology and software can help you go beyond compliance. And there are many benefits to going beyond compliance. Having improved financial performance, gaining a competitive advantage, and having opportunities to capital that you may not necessarily have had in the past. Identifying and proactively mitigating against risk and having operation resilience for a sustained future. Building upon and enhancing your company reputation and its brand equity, and having innovation and market differentiation for competitive advantages in the market. Thank you very much for your time. It has been a pleasure to speak with you all today. I wish you all the very best for the rest of the event.
Thank you very much, Chris. So, we're moving along quite nicely. I'd like to invite Yevgeny Gritsenko up to talk about Schneider Electric Solutions in the context of the ESG agenda.
Добрый день.
Good evening, colleagues. It's nice that you are here. We do not have much time, and I'll try to be brief as possible while talking about this important topic. First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Evgeny Gritsenko, company Schneider Electric, and I'm responsible for energy systems and development of this area in Kazakhstan and in Central Asia. We will start with the topic itself. What are the solutions available at Schneider Electric in its ESG agenda? And I believe that it will be correct to move through our vision on transition of different companies from MMM segment in terms of sustainable mining of the minerals. And we will start with the fact that Schneider Electric Company is a leader of digital transformation in the sphere of electric energy and automation. This company is one of the leaders in the integration of ESG inside its company group, where we have more than 200 factories and 100 logistics centers, and integrating various methodologies that were quite recently presented by a colleague in our companies. We made a decision that we should have everyone in different segments, including to provide help to our colleagues operating in the MMM segment. And on the slide, you see a lot of different nominations and awards that made our company recognized. And drilling deeper into a segment of mining, what we can see here? We can see here at little 5 key factors that push the business and changes in the business in the mining sector, as well as in metallurgy. The first one is key factors population growth, and it is unavoidable. The population growth establishes additional urbanization, enlargement of cities, and that results into a lot of construction, a lot of needs in metals and materials for construction, and so on and so forth. The second factor is sustainability. Sustainability, first of all, in development. More and more requirements, more and more regulation, more and more legislative and environmental aspects appear that requires more and more attention and the implementation of different projects. And it makes us understand that MMM segment itself, if we do not produce any changes, then this segment will produce about 15 to 20% of emissions of carbon without any changes in this regard. This share can grow up to 30% and even more. The next key aspect is a change in demand for energy, and we understand that, again, energy consumption and all the assets of the company and become less and less productive if we compare them with the situation 10 years ago. Again, the demand for energy, the growth in consumption, with the pressure to reduce the emissions of carbon will increase the demand for renewable energy sources that also require additional production. The same windmills that we mentioned recently, all of them require additional metals, additional mining to produce them. And again, the market volatility is the next key aspect. We cannot avoid it because we all the time face some economic global disasters like COVID or something more or less similar to it. And all these factors establish several questions about sustainability in terms of resource-intensive sectors. Why it becomes so critical? Why it becomes so critically important? The things that I have already mentioned: production, mining, will only keep on growing, and we'll use more and more products, smartphones, electric vehicles, whatever surrounding us, construction, urbanization, all this require more and more mine metals and minerals that tell global warming effect. This is only a segment of MMN nowadays. This segment provides almost 13% of total effect from entire global index. And out of doubt, sectoral commitments also. More and more corporations in this sector take commitments to reduce and emissions and decarbonize their processes, like ArcelorMittal, which is going to decrease emissions of CO2 by 2030, and by 2050 many companies have signed for complete reduction of hydrocarbon emissions. Now, what do we see nowadays? What are the benefits? We feel pressure. We feel the whole segment feels the pressure from the side of communities, and that establishes a need in reduction. And this need is based on the perception of the community of this segment. It is perceived as a dirty segment, which is impacting health and so on and so forth. From the side of investors, we have also faced certain number of risks, and investors understand if we are talking about certain integration and deviation from emissions and impact on nature, again, that would lead to needing additional investments as well as renewable energy, so on and so forth. The sector itself is quite energy intensive, and energy becomes more and more expensive. And the same physical risks are also being created that we have discussed, where people and their health are still important and we have to work on it. And also changes in the business are required, as well as including the culture of the building, and the way of thinking of a company are also changing. And now let us move to what we as a company, whose partner is a leading integration of ESG in our segment of electric equipment production, what is our vision? We can see that we can provide our assistance list in 3 areas which are related to each other, including emission-free generation that provides more, that integrates more efficient solutions, digital solutions, which Schneider Electric implements, and as an effect, it also creates decarbonized electric network at the entire company. And because of that, Schneider Electric in MMM segment established several step-by-step strategies of sustainable development for this particular segment. And for each of them, Schneider Electric has its own solutions, its own suggestions and ideas, and digital, not only digital tools. The first step for the program is energy efficiency of the enterprise, where thanks to different audits too, the quality of electric energy and additional services can integrate and understand how efficient you are in using electric energy at your company. The next step is improvement of profitability thanks to digital tools of asset management, mass system, and governing your company. You become more efficient in managing the profitability of your company. And again, digital management systems, the management of your assets, and you integrate more and more technologies to protect and to control the condition of health of your staff and your resources, where we have a lot of activities in the company. And as the next most important step that brings us to this result of transformation is the integration of more and more green processes, green technologies, which Schneider Electric more and more uses in its solutions, is solutions related to substitution of certain products that we used to have, for instance, deficit of gas or lack of gas that may impact on emissions, as well as the solutions on modernization of different enterprises. As a whole programs that have already been established in Schneider Electric for glass production, for steel processing, and for mining sector also. All this Schneider Electric has established as a separate offer. And on top of that, every of these steps in certain degree complies with UN objectives in sustainable development areas that have been mentioned. It is not connected to all 17 items specified there, but every stage is connected to certain steps that have been declared in this UN document. And some additions with regard of architecture itself. I'm talking a lot about digital things, about they comprise of several layers. First of all, this equipment, which is provided at different platforms. We are not. There are some equipment that should be always on, and that it should transmit its measured values. And as a second layer of control, we must be capable to collect this data and to manage this data. So this is the chain of complete collection and control of the systems that exist. And the third layer is those analytical digital elements that help to manage all the processes specified in all our models.
Yes. Yeah, I finished. Just так, переключаемся.
Actually, I would like to finish with the following. To wrap up with the following. Actually, all our activities, no matter whether these are Schneider Electric activities or we are talking about mining companies' activities, all of these companies have to decarbonize their production, not only their production, but also decarbonize their chains, all the value chains from the start up to the end of the production processes. And all the enterprises, they will change the perception of their own brands, so they have to be engaged in the sustainable development, and Schneider Electric is ready for that and is ready to help with that, integrate digitalization process for your sustainable development, implementing also renewables and other things that will help with your sustainable development. There are no substitutes for the materials. So whatever we are using now, like using extracted elements in different mines, we are using them, and there is no substitutes for them, for those materials, nothing to substitute them with. That's why technologies will just support the production of those materials. That's why, for example, I mentioned the glass production, but thanks to the integrated solutions, it was estimated that just thanks to the green process, in one production, we managed to reduce CO2 emissions by 5 something megatons. It means it's comparable with 1.16 billions of cars emissions. Thanks for your attention, and let's save our nature and let's be more green. Thank you.
If there are any questions for any of the speakers, including Chris is still online. Any questions? Okay. So I'm the next one. So I'd like to go back to the poll that was everybody has voted on. So what is the main challenge for the transition to zero carbon mining in Kazakhstan? So we had 23% for underdeveloped renewable power infrastructure, 18% for the high cost of renewable electric energy, 23% for technical challenges, for example, the lack of zero carbon dioxide emitting technologies, 14% for the social and political challenges, and 23% for the lack of resources. So a fairly even spread, but I think it also shows that there's a lot of concern, there's a lot of questions about what is the way forward, how do you actually make the progress towards this reduction in carbon. I've been in mining now for 40 years. I know I'm so young, but I mean, anyway. And I have never, ever seen the amount of ambition for change that is existing in the mining industry as there is at the moment. To make these changes of 30 to 50% reduction in emissions in the next 7 years. You know, we're not talking about sometime in the future. We're talking in a very short period of time. There's a lot of desire for change. So what I'm going to be talking today is I'm going to go very briefly, because I've only got a short time for myself as well, go very briefly on what people are doing around the world to be able to reduce emissions, the changes that they're making, the level of ambition that companies are aiming for, what will happen if you don't do those changes, if you don't share that ambition, because your banks are not going to be able to finance companies who do not have ambition for making change. So it's not just what is desirable. You're going to run into problems with finance. You're going to run into problems with costs coming in for your products because of the various carbon barriers coming in. But there is ways, and the key thing is to be able to develop that path, to understand your energy, and to be able to work it through and have a plan. So, much ado, let's go on. So last year, I outlined a number of ways where the greenhouse gas emissions exist and what you can do about it. As I said, a number of companies have made targets. These are public companies which have to now achieve these targets. They do not have the option. And they have to do a 30% reduction if we want to have a 2-degree maximum, or 50% for a 1.5. And a number of companies are aiming for that 50% reduction. It's a combination of current technologies, but also new technologies. As I said, the level of ambition is significant. You've got Rio Tinto saying $7.5 billion is what they expect to spend over the next 7 years. You've got other companies who are saying, we're not just going to be satisfied with what we can directly control in our scope 1 and 2, we're also going to work with our clients and our customers to reduce their emissions for the scope 3. They are partnering with equipment suppliers and making the equipment suppliers invest in new technology. A number of companies have committed to buying a fleet of at least 30 trucks with battery technology within the next 4 or 5 years. So they've investing $200 million each. And this is just with Caterpillar, and they're doing similar things with Komatsu and other suppliers in order to develop technology. Now, it's not just battery. We're talking about hydrogen fuel cells. And these aren't small trucks. These are your 290, 320-ton trucks. So these are not small, insignificant vehicles. We've got renewable diesel being trialled. These are all things happening now. That hydrogen truck started driving about a year ago, and it's working. We've got companies saying, we've got very sensitive processes like an aluminium smelter which cannot afford to lose electricity, and we want it to be renewable. So we've got Rio Tinto is committing, they've asked for expressions of interest or proposals for 4 gigawatts of power for their smelter, for the aluminium smelter in Australia. And that goes through, that will be 1/3 of Australia's entire renewable energy supply. So we're not talking about small steps. We're talking about companies ready to take big steps to be able to achieve these targets. So what does it mean for Kazakhstan? For Kazakhstan, what I'm seeing at the moment, I don't see that level of ambition. All right, I see fairly small steps. A lot of people are concerned and worried about where the money is going to come from, what's going to happen. Kazakhstan has built a major industry based on having low-cost energy. And it's got a very successful metals business on that basis. But there is going to be a need to change because, as I said, the banks won't finance you unless you've got an ambition to change. You're going to find that your customers, okay, the European Union is just one small area, but you'll find that your Chinese customers, who then sell their products to Europe, are going to find that they're going to have to increase the prices, and therefore they're going to lose business, and therefore they're going to drive down your prices because of the emissions. So these are the factors that are going to change. But it's not without hope, because the IFC, the EBRD, they are ready to finance renewable projects. So this is all available. So one of the points in the survey was saying, where's the money going to come from? There is money available for renewable projects. So where is Kazakhstan on the journey? They said it's going to reduce emissions by 15% versus 1990. Depending on which information source you see, at the moment they're at 1%. They've got another 14% to achieve in the next 7 years. Now, there's plans for another 6 gigawatts of renewable energy, and wonderful, but that's not going to be nearly enough. It's going to be more, and the other problem is it's not just a matter of changing or putting in new renewable energy. You've got to drop away the coal side of it and change it to a much more flexible energy source. To give an example, the graph on the top right there is the UK's power consumption on 31st of January this year, just a day that I looked at. So you can see that demand varies throughout the day. So your supply has to vary throughout the day. But your coal and your nuclear power stations cannot vary throughout the day. They are baseload. So you may end up with a situation that happened last week in the Czech Republic, where they had to switch off the solar cells because they had more supply than they had demand. So if you don't have a flexible energy system, you won't be able to get the full benefits of the renewable energy. You won't be able to achieve those targets. So there needs to be, you need to make sure that there is this demand, this system. So you can see the graph on the bottom right, that is the UK energy mix over the last 10, 11 years. So the amount of energy from coal has gone down massively, and that's been, first of all, it was replaced by the dash for gas, but it's also now being replaced by wind. We don't have much sun, so we can't have too much of that, but you can see that that has had a massive impact also on our emissions. That's reduced the UK's emissions by 65% in the electricity market. So some big changes are possible. I have worked in the coal industry, so I appreciate that, killing my client is not a very good business strategy. But unfortunately, to make the changes necessary, it is going to be needed to make this transition away from coal. Coal can still be there at about a 40% base load level, but you're going to need to make the transition towards having more flexible power. So what can industry do about this? I mean, is it somebody else's problem? No, you are major consumers. The main metals and mining companies here are responsible for 30% of all of the electricity that's consumed. You can make commitments to say, we want more power. Some companies are doing it. ERG is putting in a 155 megawatt wind farm. That's a good start, but as you saw, we're getting Rio Tinto's going for 4 gigawatts of power. It is possible to be able to put in, to drive for more changes. By being a major consumer, you have a fantastic position to be able to require the changes to happen. You can speak with independent power producers to be able to get them to build new facilities. People say that renewable energy is expensive, but it's not. Remember, the wind and the sun are cheap. And if the problem is the capital, but the IFC and the EBRD are ready to fund it. To be able to show the level of ambition, you need to have a carbon reduction strategy. Here are a number of steps as defined by the Global Financial Alliance for Net Zero. These are people who represent the big money. These are the lenders, these are the investors around the world who are saying, if you don't do it, we're not going to invest in you, we're not going to lend to you. So you need to do it. You need to be able to show the various steps, and these can all be mapped out. So, you don't just go and invest in everything. Some initiatives are going to cost a lot of money and not have a big impact. Some initiatives are actually going to help improve the efficiency of your business, so you want to do it anyway. So this should not be an obstacle for change. You should look to try and look for the opportunities. It will actually save you money. There are significant benefits. And as I said, if you don't do it, there are significant risks. So my time is up. So I'd like to thank everybody, but I would like to try and encourage industry in Kazakhstan to raise the level of ambition, to aim for bigger changes, and to strive to be able to reduce emissions even faster. So thank you. Any questions? Thank you. There's the speaker. All right, the next speaker. Ta-da! Come and tell us what's happening at the moment.
Добрый день, дамы и господа. Меня зовут Айзекенова Дильнара. Я представляю Central
Dinara, Central Asia Metals, and I'm from Kazakhstan and the company Conrad. Yesterday, you could listen to presentation of Vitaly Logachov, our technical director, who will be talk about our company. But I will remind Kazakhstan company does dump bleaching with poly acid solutions and collects this solution and then transmit the solution to Conrad company. Conrad company in turn receives this solution, send it for external electrolysis, and also prepare leaching solution for Kazakh company. So all the cycles at our project are closed, and we do not have discharges. So, turning to the topic of my presentation, I would like to tell you that our project is in operation. We are not at the stage of liquidation, but as our company has accepted sustainable development, the policy of sustainable development, and we are sure that the closure should be rational and progressive. The first studies that have been carried out in 2018 is a study of deflation processes at the site of dams. All dams, depending on climate condition, composition of rocks, are subject to wind erosion, and we made a survey at our dams. And these dams were created in a process of long-term operation of tons and deposits and contain a lot of useful components for extraction, which is our company is doing through dump leaching. And our surveys prove that in the process of application of our solutions, cement layers appearing on the surface of dumps containing of erosive gypsum, granite, and so on. These materials do not allow dust to move with the wind, and it may happen with mechanical distortion, but as soon as the surface is irrigated, this layer recovers again. So the next work was done in 2019. That includes the methods of recultivation of dumps. For us, this topic was very important, and we decided to make a survey. And our work comprised of the following researches. We studied international experience in regulation of subsoil use and recultivation. We studied local legislation. We did botanical study of area. We analyzed subsidence phenomena using radar interferometry. We made a thematic interpretation, analysis of vegetation dynamics. All the works are listed on a slide. You may read them through, and at the end we identified the direction of the closure works that we will do in many years ahead. In the course of these works, we understood that we identified the most important aspects for the closure. And the key of them was the conclusions that organized leaching of situ dams protects nature-made objects from contaminated runoff and prepares dams for biological remediation. So biological remediation in the classical sense is not feasible due to the scales of the dams, but tested areas showed capability for self-overgrowth, and it will be the key areas. Other technical measures are also not feasible due to the fact that these dams can be considered as potential man-made deposits. Our deposits refer to copper porphyrites, and these deposits are the key sources of molybdenum, copper, silver, and also byproducts like rare earth elements. So maybe these dams will represent further interest for mining. After the previous work, we also prepared the patent for the model. Our dump leaching methods is recognized as chemical recultivation. Recultivation of any dams shall resolve a problem of improper impact of acid drainage generated, in our model describes our working method, of irrigation of dumps and collection of solutions. So preliminary preparation of dump surface to be remediated, a construction of collection trenches, and further operations are carried out consistently at every block of the dump. Last year, the company, together with Golda, prepared an internal plan of closure based on the works that I have described, and as a result, the model of dump leaching has been patented. It is a part of chemical remediation. The second, after the end of production, technical closure of facilities will be required, as well as in any other object. Subsequent natural acidic drainage will be already less toxic and will be neutralized in specially equipped alkaline trenches, and biological stage in its classical understanding will not be carried out due to its inefficiency. We will need a short period for self-overgrowth. That is why, due to that, we'll act progressively and close our dumps in stages so as to contribute to self-overgrowing and control technical stability of the dumps. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, perfect. So now I'd like to move on and ask Elena to come up and talk about renewables as a tool of mining industry decarbonization.
Good evening to all of your colleagues, and I'm happy to welcome you. I'm Elena Borovikova, Armstrong International, and I would like to tell you about the use of renewable energy sources in the mining industry for reduction of carbon footprint from the production. I believe that my presentation will become a good logical addition to David's presentation. For the beginning, I'll introduce our company. Wadlan Armstrong is known in Kazakhstan as an independent mining consultant, but not everyone knows that we also provide a complete spectrum of service in the sphere of renewable energy, and we deal with the resolution of the issues related to the climate change. On this slide, you see the areas of our expertise in this sector, and you may familiarize yourself with them. The need to search solutions for decarbonization of the economy, as well as rolling out energy crisis and the world pushes company to pay more attention to alternative energy. And we see the use of energy of solar, wind, biomass, and also we see the appearance of the project in the green hydrocarbon. And also, while we have accumulated significant experience in the use of renewable energy sources in the mining sector, so we would like to share this knowledge with you. It's not a secret that mining sector is one of the most energy-intensive sectors of economy. It is forecasted that energy intensiveness of metal production will grow due to the growth of demand for solid minerals and a general decrease of the concentration of useful components in the ore. On this slide, you see the volumes of energy required to produce particular metals, and also byproducts, emissions of greenhouse gas. And you may see that gold is the most energy-intensive production, and it is accompanied with the biggest emission of greenhouse gases per a million of produced tons. Also in 2017, globally, 3.5 tons of gold were produced. For that, about 35 terawatt energy was required, and greenhouse gas emissions made about 75 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalents. I would say carbon dioxide, it is also always considered equivalent. Steel production is less energy intensive and is accompanied with less emissions of GHG gases per ton of produced metal if compared to gold, but global scales of it makes the production of gold, of iron, and steel as the biggest energy consumers and the source of emissions of greenhouse gases. Let me briefly remind how carbon footprint assessed in accordance with the recommendation DCFD. Emissions of greenhouse gases broken down three spheres. Scope 1 is direct emissions. The second scope is direct Sorry. The second scope includes consumption of energy. Scope 3 is indirect emissions, which are related to the processes which are not controlled by a company. If the company cannot impact indirect emissions, but reduction of energy and direct emissions, the good decision is to transmit to renewable energy. The company can generate energy or buy green energy from other producers to reduce own energy emissions. I'll give you a couple examples on how it works. To reduce direct emissions at Sukaria, mining belonging to Syntamin company Digit. In 2021, solar panel was introduced with a capacity of 36 megawatt with a system of accumulator batteries that allowed the mine to ensure up to 20% of the energy needs through solar energy. The saving was 70,000 liters of diesel fuel per day, which is equivalent to 60,000 tons of emission of carbon dioxide per year. Political company managed to decrease the energy emissions almost by 100% thanks to the transition to energy supply of the key companies of the group based on hydro energy supply by Russian companies. The diagram on the slide shows a global trend, the development and the use of renewable energy sources and extracting processes since period of 2000 till 2019. The growth was noted since 2015 and the sharp increase fall on 2019. The use of renewable sources of energy in mine sector grew from 42 megawatts of installed capacity in 2008 to almost 4,000 megawatts in 2019. The majority of the projects introduced in operation in 2018-19 are hybrid, as they combine use solar, wind energy with accumulating batteries for compensation of inequality in generation. Fossil fuel is also still used, and in non-hybrid projects we observe photovoltaic power plants and also wind plants as a leaders. On this slide you see some specifics and the key advantages and disadvantages of photovoltaic and windmills. Amongst the advantages we see non-high production cost of generated electricity and a huge range of installed capacity. Also, the deficiency is they cannot be installed everywhere. To install solar panel, big areas are required, and all series of energy sources are required because at night solar panels do not work. And I would like to give you an example from practice. In 2022, at Varlamstrom, performed assessment of applicability of different technologies of alternative energy for bigger project at Africa with very high environmental social sensitivity of the district of location. At the stage of feasibility study, energy needs of the project for entire period of operation were assessed as 6,000 gigawatts. To provide this need, first we consider construction of electric power plant on black oil with a capacity of 40 megawatts and total amount of emissions and equivalent of dioxide carbon was 4.6 million tons. The cost to procure black oil was assessed at $633 million. So the alternative consultant World Astrom considered construction of photovoltaic, wind and power plant. As allocation of project allows successfully use any of these options, and we carried out assessment of capital cost for construction and calculate resultant cost of electric energy per kilowatt. In the table on the slide, you see the outcomes of brief economic analysis of cost for production of energy through burning of black oil, and also we made assessment of potential savings and reductions of emissions through the use of alternative energy plants. Financial and environmental advantages are visible, but construction of power plant working alternative energy sources has its own social advantages.
because this power plant, solar or wind, can be submitted then to the community for their own use and purposes. This is a very interesting study, case study, but what about alternative energy in Kazakhstan? In David's presentation, there were some facts indicated, maybe I will repeat it, but renewables recently, so Kazakhstan is saying that renewables is one of the vectors to develop the energy complex in Kazakhstan. The potential for renewables in Kazakhstan is very high. There were 130 facilities of alternative energy sources, 2,400 megawatts capacity. On the slide, you can see the breakdown. Also in Kazakhstan, there are public support measures for renewables. It is possible to sell produced power to the general grid using specific tariffs, and it's a guaranteed procurement of the renewables energy. And the priority is for the renewables in transmitting the energy through the lines. Some other examples. In order to build solar panels or wind plants, we need copper, nickel, lithium, neodymium. Anyhow, there will be the increased demand for these metals. On this slide, you can see the increased demand for these metals calculated by IRENA. And you can see the forecast demand is great, and it provides a new opportunity for Kazakhstan in mineral resources, but we can talk about that next time. Thanks for your attention. If you are interested in this topic, I'm ready to talk to you and answer your questions.
Yelena, any questions for Yelena? Okay, let's move on and invite Lawrence Russo to come up. Lawrence is the Chief Executive Officer of RG Gold, and he's going to talk about their ESG strategy.
Thank you, David. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity. I must admit, when I saw the delegation and I saw where I was being fitted into this graveyard shift, the big bad mining company, I really thought this is a trap to actually determine what are these guys doing, where we are doing. But I just want to thank you for the opportunity. We at RG Gold, we are really passionate about this. In my experience in the mining industry, there are basically three divisions of mining companies when it comes to ESG. You get the first, I like to call it the old school mining companies that believe ESG is a government enforced method to take control and to make money from them. Obviously, these companies do the absolute minimum when it comes to ESG. You get a second group of companies, and I think a lot of us work for them, or worked with these companies before, who understand the importance of ESG, but they pay a lot of lip service to this. There's obviously a lot of window dressing going on with this. They implement a lot of they adopt a lot of the strategies, but there's very little implementation. And then you get the third group of companies, and we like to believe we are falling in that group where ESG is an absolute necessity. And I would like to tell you a little story about this, where this penny dropped for me personally and for my team. I was driving to our mine site December 2020. And it was about 6 o'clock in the morning. It was pitch dark, it was minus 20 degrees, and there was a car standing next to the road. There was a broken down car. And while we were approaching this car, somebody jumped out of the car and they tried to flag us down. And it was a young lady with a baby. Stopped the car, and we got her into the car, and she immediately started crying. She says she's been sitting there for 3 hours, their car broke down, husband walked to go and get some help, and it was physically freezing. I could see this woman was freezing. And she wanted to go to the next village, so we gave her a lift to the next village. And while driving there, she realized who we are and what we're from, and she started bubbling. She just said how really thankful she is for what the mine has done, that there is a mine on their doorstep, that the mine give her husband work, the mine provide so many social projects and so much assistance. The school that the children's going to has been sponsored by the mine, etc., etc. that is when the realization came to me that as a company, the effect we can have in the day-to-day lives of people. You know, we don't always realize this. It's always business, and it's as critical as it is, the effect we have on the people around us. Traditionally, I come from the mines in Africa, and we have something similar where the level of poverty surrounding the mines is atrocious. You know, you get these big mines, and we're living on the doorsteps of these people. We're in their backyard, and we firmly believe it's our responsibility. It's not a choice. It's a responsibility of the big mining companies to make a difference in the grassroots level. There's obviously some regulations in place, and I understand there is a place for updating a park and painting a government building white. I mean, there's places for this, and these are requirements that we need. But we are more passionate, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that, and getting involved in the day-to-day level of the people around us. And I specifically want to focus a little bit on the social part of our program. But before we continue on that, I would just like to just tell you a little bit more about RG Gold for these that don't know. We're the third largest single deposit gold mine in Kazakhstan, area of approximately 43 square kilometers. We're mining 7 million tons of ore this year, 2 million through the heap leach, 5 million through a newly commissioned CIP plant, which we've just commissioned about 6-7 months ago. We employ about 1,100 people, approximate gold reserve, 6 million ounces where we are today, proven reserves. And our target this year is to produce 180,000 ounces of gold. Shareholding structure, 65% local, and we've got a 35% American fund, a private equity fund called RCF. From operational results, you can see how the company has been growing steady for the last 8 to 9 years. The ore process from 600,000 up to about 7 million tons, what is our target for this year. Gold production, as you can see, we're aiming to produce more than 5.5 tons of gold for the year. And then just quickly, what our mission as the company is. The mission is to grow the gold mining business, specifically gold mining business, because we've got a bad rap, but where I come from and in Kazakhstan as well. And the sustainable and effectively bringing maximized value to the stakeholders. That is where the critical part is for us in the stakeholders as such. You can see our vision there, becoming a leading gold mining company in Kazakhstan, and we are on our way in becoming that, and is to grow the capitalization of the shareholders and the value of RG for everybody involved. For a contribution, we're specifically working to 11 development goals according to the United Nations, sustainable goals, no poverty. That is, as you can see, we've got that as number one. And that is really, really something we are working really hard towards. The good health and well-being, good quality education, another aspect that's badly missing in the area we are living. People are driving 60, 70 kilometers on old cars and broken down buses to get their children to school. I'm talking about 6, 7-year-old children being driven around in an old, cold school bus just to get to school. These are the type of basic things that's happening around us today. Basic things are clean water and sanitation. You know, for a lot of us, this doesn't make sense. Why do you even mention that? A lot of these people physically don't have that. They carry water with buckets, where we are today, buckets into the houses. They go to some pond, they carry water, they bring it to the house. In this day and age where we are living, we are mining right on their doorstep. 5 million ton per annum company, we are mining right next door to them. And these are the type of things that this management team, we are bothered by that. We really feel this is where we can make a difference. You've seen some of the other responsible consumption and progress, partnership and everybody, climate action, environmental. We obviously feel very, very passionate about that. We'll go into a little bit more detail of those. Just you can see how our company employees have grown. We started off with 200 in 2014 odd. We're now at over 1,100. Age of employees is there. It's a fairly young group of people we got on the mines. The distribution by gender, 86 versus 14%. Then our business ethics, this also forms part of our ESG strategy, to give all our employees 100% training in corporate ethics. This is, it has been a problem traditionally in some of the businesses we're involved. We've developed a hotline where people can phone in. All these policies have been updated to modern international standards. In terms of procurement, which is also part of the ESG strategy, 35.3 billion tenge worth of goods, works and services, about $77 million have been placed. Important to note is there the second one, the services, 95% is locals. And again, it comes down to supporting the local businesses. We'll see now how much of that in the area we support. Some of the social projects the company is busy with at the moment, the reconstruction of Walk of Fame of Shchuchynsk. That is what I mentioned as well. There is definitely a place for those, but our focus going forward will be moving away from these stuff. Repair of the highway, restoration, here we go, restoration of the water supply system in one of the villages around us. This infrastructure has been dilapidated for years, That's part of the project we want to do. Repairs of the school in the villages and the areas around us, again, absolutely critical for us. Earthworks to get a reservoir, equipment and schools for mini centers. Some of these people don't even have laptops, no computers. Some don't even have electricity. And these are the areas we would like to expand in and make a difference in. Cultural sports events, and then we also help with the distribution of the mobile services there. Here's a couple of pictures of some of the projects we've been involved in. We support the Kazakh Deaf Association. There's a group just close to our mine. They make geological bags. We actively support them. We buy all the bags they can do. We support, here's the numbers, 20 of the local suppliers in the area, direct suppliers to our mine. We bring them from within 10 to 20 kilometers from the mine, and they actively get involved, and they get the effect of our mine. And educational grants, again, we obviously feel very passionate of uplifting the children and getting the education right. From an environmental point of view, like everywhere around the world, obviously water is critical. We try and preserve that. We're moving away from plastic bottles, which is quite general in Kazakhstan. We put in water stations, water purification stations, waste management systems. And then something which is also not very common in this part of the world is the International Cyanide Management Code. I think everybody who's involved in the mining industry understands what the code is. It's a really stringent management code in terms of how you manage, how you control cyanide. The training that is involved in that. The construction of the plant was actually built according to the International Cyanide Code in terms of the storage, the dosage facility, safety aspect that goes around with that. And then part of our environmental system, the tailings dam, tailings storage facility we've got. Another aspect that we've built, not according to Kazakh legislation, but we built according to to international standards. We've had an international consulting company managing that aspect for us, doing construction supervision. And it's just the safety factor has just vastly increased from what you get locally and what is required by the international system. And lastly, the environment. I said we're going to touch on those. There's various projects at the moment that we are busy with as a company. One of the interesting ones is obviously this part of the world as well. It's very dusty with a lot of villages around us. As a mine, we create a lot of dust. There's so much suppression that you can do in some of these areas. But we are working closely with the University of Narcos in Almaty. They do a computer modeling based on the dust generations in a specific area. And I think it's called, phytobarriers, as they call it. And they do a modeling of exactly how much dust the trees and the shrubs dust it can capture in the area. And based on that, there's a recommendation of the size of the trees, the quantity, etc., etc. So there's a big drive on this to try and completely, you will never eliminate it, but by a massive amount, just reduce the dust generated by the company. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all that I've got. I don't know if you've got any questions from my side.
Thank you very much. Very good demonstration of what's happening in a mine that is obviously very focused on the subject. So thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, carrying on with the operations, I would like to invite Telman to come up and talk about the energy saving and decarbonization program at Kazakhstan.
Good evening, distinguished colleagues, friends. My name is Tilman Shuriev. I am from National Atomic Company Kazakhstan. The topic of my presentation is a program of energy efficiency, energy saving, and now strategy of decarbonization at Kazakhstan. In general, to understand what the company is doing, Kazakhstan is the biggest global producer of uranium and we occupy the first place globally in uranium production and sales. Actually, we have 12 to 14% of resources of total revenue, of total uranium resources. We are leaders in some processes, includes of labor safety and environment protection also. To continue the activities of the company, our company operates, employs more than 20,000 persons, 24% of share global uranium. We have 36 subsidiary and independent companies, 100% of our products goes for export. Now let us move to international benchmarking. We can say that in accordance with the reports of IAEA in 2020, the share of atomic energy has about 10% of global production of electric energy. And we understand that without generation of electricity, the emissions of greenhouse gases globally will be much more. And nuclear energy makes significant contribution to decarbonization, and all the countries understand it and develop these volumes of cells via atomic energy stations is one of the tools related to minimization of GHG emissions. If we turn to decarbonization in Kazakhstan, then in accordance with the statistics, Kazakhstan is in the list of top 30 emitters of GHG gases and takes the 9th places on volumes of emissions against GDP, 11th place of emissions by per capita, and actually the place of Kazakhstan in general emission GHG emissions is significant. Kazakhstan has to play an important role in Paris Agreement. Kazakhstan has taken all the commitments to achieve carbon neutrality, and Kazatomprom, being one of national companies which is in quasi-governmental sector, we also want to make our contribution to the development of these commitments. Now let us turn to the structure of the activity of the companies. We developed our strategy. At the left you see Kazatomprom has been broken into 3 key sectors. This is mining processing, nuclear cycle and metallurgy, and auxiliary activities, which is responsible and helps our mining enterprises like drilling, geology, and electric energy. So we broke the activity in 3 main directions. If you have a look at the right part of the slides, the bigger part of GHG gases, Scope 1 and Scope 2. Mostly we have Scope 2 emissions from procured electric energy, procurement from Power Plant 1 and Power Plant 2, which is coal-fired. And in our strategy, we focus on the reduction of GHG emissions in Scope 2, but at the same time, we are taking efforts on Scope 1 and on Scope 3. But if we take Pareto principle, then logically the key focus should be divided between procurement of electric energy from renewable energy sources, and the pie we have shown the composition of our Scope 1. The main part is vehicles, 44%, and boilers, 39%, and 11% are our compressors, and 6% the others. Then we turn to the structure of emissions of GHG gases coming from our activities. As I have mentioned, the structure comprises of mining sector, nuclear, fuel cycle, and auxiliary activities. So 59% of GHG emissions fall on mining sector. 34% is auxiliary sector, and it is clear because transport means are used as geologic drilling, significant sources of GHG emissions, especially internal combustion drives. And now turning to the tools of GHG emissions, Kazakhstan in 2022 developed and approved own strategy of development of decarbonization and achievement carbon neutrality. That was done together with the company and Ernst & Young, and we described the key instruments and tools and the ways to achieve how we are going to reach it. As you have seen, then in scope 1 indirect emissions, here we're talking about boilers, and in the boilers we also implemented the whole projects on minimization of fuel consumption in boilers, in diesel generators, and transportation. So, and using digital instruments, we will also minimize, and our boilers will be installed with automation systems that will regulate the flow of consumption of diesel fuel, and with this it will give an effect for reduction of GHG emissions. And also we have scope 2, as I have mentioned, it makes 89%, and here we pay a lot of attention. And if the share of renewable energy previously Kazakhstan was 4%, then since this year we plan that we'll achieve at the end of the reduction of emissions from the figures of 2021 by 15 to 19%. And at the same time, we will also impact on such factors as mining, and so we fix the figure of 2021, and I believe it will be a significant dynamics. And in 2022 we kept the positions at the level of 2021, but as we have developed the strategy, we have identified the tools and the way to achieve our goals, and one of the areas is the procurement of renewable energy, and we also plan to buy offsets, and at the same time we will develop together with association culture procurement of offsets and trees planting. All these instruments have been described in the strategy of Kazakhstan within the report approved in April 2023. We'll publish all our instruments and all our indicators until 2030. And what are the indicators that we set for ourselves? And now turning to the question of energy efficiency, we have been already mentioned that energy efficiency and energy saving are the key tools for decarbonization. And we consider decarbonization not only as a load, as a burden on business, but first of all, it is an economic indicators. If you have a look on 3 years, 2020, 21, 2022, we will see that economic effect of activities on energy efficiency and energy saving in 2022 made 1 billion tenge. If it's summarized 2 years, the total figure will be 2.75 billion tenge. So this is an effect of an implementation of energy efficiency and saving program. At the right, this is a key tools in modernization, energy efficiency of technological processes, and all these are the comprehensive steps for energy efficient and energy saving. And then we go on Pareto principle, and for ourselves we have divided that mining and servicing sector, and you will see at the left the pie in violet shows that mining sector has 76% of energy consumption, and in servicing the share is 23%, and we have focused our attention on mining sector, and also we check who consumes energy most in mining sector. So you see in yellow 67% is our geotechnological polygon, where we have most pumps, compressors, and processing workshops that makes 19%, and 9% is auxiliary part, buildings, and so on. For us, we have identified ourselves for ourselves. For every source of emission, we will make certain activities so as to decrease, to have targeted decrease. If in 60% is a work of submersible pumps. Now we are taking efforts to use pumps with less consumption of energy. And if we focus attention on these big objects, we will implement our program of decarbonization at maximum. And here you see the key areas. We have identified that energy saving program comprises of electric energy and diesel fuel. I will not describe all these steps, but the key facts of energy saving and energy efficiency for 2022 proves that we have saved diesel fuel, as that decreased GHG emissions, and energy saving energy efficiency program of Kazakhstan in 2022 allowed us to save 5% of electric energy from plant. So it had its economic effect, and GHG emissions were decreased in the amount of 49.5 tons. So for you to understand the system, the group Kazakhstan is a part of Samruk-Kazyna group, and the share of our emissions of GHG is 1.6%. It is not significant, but at the same Kazakhstan, despite of this insufficient indicators in the volumes of GHG emissions, we set for ourselves an ambitious objectives on maximum minimization of these emissions. And speaking about target indicators, before 2030, we set the objective to decrease up to 15% of GHG emissions in 2030, but already now we see that this indicator will be at the level of minus 15% by 2030. Maybe we'll reach even bigger indicators, and by 2045 we also set ourselves an objective to decrease by 40%, and 2060, as head of state mentioned in his resignation, we have to achieve complete carbon neutrality. That's all with me, and if you have any questions, you are welcome to ask them.
Any questions? Thank you, that was excellent. Thank you very much. So I'd like to now invite Chingiz Sedyakov, CEO of Alidada, to talk about tailings and how they should stay standing up.
Всем привет, здравствуйте.
Good evening, colleagues. Are you tired? Seems almost we have few presentation. I'll try to present my presentation in a very interesting way. So, what I'm Chingiz Sedyakov. I'm the head of a company, Alidada, where I deal with engineering, geology, and core drilling. And I can tell you that we have significant experience in surveys for tail damping and geotechnics. Colleagues, let us remind that tailing dams as well as water reservoirs have significant potential hazard for society, as in the case of a disaster, the tails can rush out and ruin everything. The reasons could be different: geology, hydrology, error in design, or improper control. Today we will discuss several cases with the reason. My reason will be geology. Let us remind on other types of tailing dams. They're different in their forms based on relief and geological conditions. They can be of different forms, and you may see in the slide. But today we are talking about tailing dams, but not on water reservoirs, because the tails is an additional risk factor. Slurry tails, how they appear, and you are aware of that, but let us remind about it. When at the factory you have a task to extract useful metal out of ore or out of rock, you apply certain technologies that include application of chemicals, chemical elements, and after the extraction has happened, invaluable elements are delivered to slurry tailing dams. So they contain a lot radioactive and sometimes even toxic substances, and there are cases when M1 tailing slurry you will find a lot of cyanides, mercury, and arsenics. So let us talk about the statistics in the most recent period. In the most recent 100 years since the beginning of previous year. On this schedule, you might see that this strategy has killed at least 3,000 lives, human lives. And this diagram to the left, you see the volumes of tell the volume of mass that has been released as a result of the accidents. At the right, you see the statistic of human deaths. The statistics are very sad. If we combine these two schedules, we see that there is a positive trend.
When we see the increase in freeing of the masses of the tailings, we can see the growth, but we don't see the growth in casualties. So it means that those technologies that we are using, the safety measures in the industry, it means that we are moving in the right direction, because despite of all these disasters, we still have not so much increase in casualties. So Brazil 2019, do you know about this event in Brazil in 2019? Do you know that what happened there? Have you heard of Brumadinho disaster in 2019? Okay, great. Many of you do not know, but let me tell you, in 2019, it was a great disaster, maybe the biggest in the world, but the biggest in the continent in the mining industry. Let's remember where Brazil is, Rio de Janeiro and Brumadinho village. Near this village, there is a mining of the whale company. And what happened actually? There was damage of the dam number 1. So it was damaged, and the tailings were broken. So on the next slide, you can see the results of this damage of the disaster. This is the tailings after the dam, after the failure. Here there are buildings, so canteen, and everything was destroyed. Actually, it was a big disaster. Let's have a look from far away. This is a dam, which we talked about, and then we have the village and the river, and down the stream of the river, you can see the tailings. This is the whale company, and now you can see what happened after the disaster. The buildings were destroyed completely. It was in lunchtime. It was about about noontime. There were people in the canteen. There were people working in the shift. Many people, so they suffered, and also people living downstream, they suffered as well. And just to remind you that those dangerous chemical elements, they reached the river, and they were disseminated all over the continent, almost along the river. It's a big environmental disaster that happened. There is a video about the disaster, about the damage. We will see it right now. But let's have a look at 25th of January, 2019, 12:29, lunchtime in Brazil. It was summertime, so it was very hot. Lunchtime, someone went to canteen. Someone is queuing. You know that usually at the mines there is a queue in the canteen. No suspicious of anything bad to happen. Normal working day. And what happened next? You can see on the video what happened next. So if there is a sound, you would hear. The dam, the height of dam was 80 meters. The width was 500 meters, and it was destroyed just in 1 second. And you could see the speed of spreading of the toxic substances. Roads, railroads, fields, whatever was downstream was covered by this wave of toxic substances. Local mass media, so they they wrote that this toxic mud just burst the bodies of humans, of people. Official data, 269 dead people and 11 bodies have not been found yet so far. These are the consequences. Actually, it's a big tragedy, and it's environmental tragedy and tragedy for people. These people who were living in the village, in the settlement downstream, they were also suffering from that. Official data after this tragedy. There was a big investigation, and the result of the investigation showed that 4 geotechnics with the knowledge about the dam and the tailings, they made a report. This is the copy of this report, original report. I translated it into Russian language. Let me read it. In the video, you can see the mechanism of damage, and the damage was on the slope of the dam because of the loss of the density. It was because of the water in the materials of the dam. So it shows that the materials of the dam were not sustainable. From our practice, we did engineering surveys in Koktay to the north of Almaty. We were in the field. Trent colleagues, he was in charge of us. He was a great expert, and we were looking at one drilling rig to the other. We were looking how the drilling is ongoing, how the samples are taken. Trent didn't ask any questions. So but something worried him. When I was looking at him, I saw that he was worried by something. And when at night we were getting together, we were driving back from the field. It was a green field. And when we came down to the village, Koksai village, we should go to different places. It was a night time already, and saying goodbye, he told me, Chingiz, I was looking there. I didn't have any comments, but please pay attention to the crossover, overlapping of geological layers, because this situation reminds me Brumadinho, because in the upstream there was a tailings, and downstream there was a village. The same you have here, and during the survey, nobody took into account the weak layers, upper layers. That's why this disaster happened. That's why how we can ensure safety and ensure so the strength of the layers, all the layers. That's why what we are doing doing static probing. What does it mean? We install probe into the soil. Besides drilling, we recommend to the clients to do this kind of CPT testing, probing. So probes with sensors, doing measurements of the resistance and others. Chingiz, please.
Мы видим, также есть другие.
Yes, we are conducting other tests, CPT tests and others. I will not talk about every test that we are doing, but with this kind of surveys, we can have the complete geological picture. Why it is important? Because there are some disasters happening in the world, not here, but anywhere in the world. Here you can see the list of big disasters at the dams all over the world. 4 of them happened because of the geological reasons. So the statistics tells us 225 disasters happened from the last century, but maybe it's wrong statistics. No, because not everyone is reporting about these disasters. But why we have man-made disasters at the tailings, and why it happens? Let's let's refer to the publication, the authors of this publication. So these are Moscow University's professors. The analysis shows that the disasters at the tail ends happened in 40% of the cases because of the lack or improper engineering geological surveys, in 30% of the cases because of the improper selection of the technologies in designing the tail end facilities. Then let's have the question how we can reduce the probability of this disaster. Ralph Peck tells very nice sense. Very often, a very thorough survey of the soil can replace very complicated calculations during the design. That's why I highlight again, you have to be very thorough in your surveys. Sometimes you have to conduct additional field surveys and studies. Also, it's very important to use advanced technologies in the labs. For example, here, let me explain. When we take the rock from the 30 meters, and then at the depth of 30 meters, there is a pressure, so natural pressure, vertical and horizontal pressure. When we take out this soil from 30 meters, there is no such a pressure. What we do, then we put this sample again into special device, putting pressure to it so that it will be close to its natural conditions, and then we get better results. Maybe so the surveys will be a bit more costly, but it will not. But for sure, it will pay off. If you look at, if you watch YouTube, please you can sign to our YouTube channel about mining industry.
This is a very important area, and I know that a lot of companies feel that this does not happen in Russia or CIS countries. However, it does happen. We are aware of a number of these failures. It is just that people tend to keep quiet about it. So I definitely agree with Chinggis that this is an area which needs more attention. So thank you. Right, now we're moving on to the star speaker, the last, the final, the one and only Janar.
Thank you, Dave, for such introduction. Hello, everybody. I will speak in Russian from now on. Здравствуйте, добрый вечер всем.
Hello, good evening, everyone. The last presentation, I will try to be brief. I understand that you are tired, but as you can see from the previous session and in our session, you can see that the mining industry is facing a lot of challenges and risks. And in my last presentation, I would like to talk about one of the risks, and I believe that this risk is the highest for mining activity. And in the first presentation of our session, Chris showed this slide, but these are the top risks and opportunities for mining industry. Ernst & Young presented these risks in 2023, and Chris mentioned that the main risk is ESG, and we are talking about ESG during this session. But I would like to talk about license to operate. This risk is the fourth in this rating, and in previous years, the license to operate was risk number 1 in this rating. And I believe the fact is that license to operate is a separate risk, so it's not a part of ESG risk. It means that this is a very important element and the main risk, one of the main risks for any mining project. Actually, I would like to tell that social license to operate, SLO. It was introduced just recently. It was introduced by the World Bank. Why it was introduced? Because there were a lot of conflicts between the mining industry, mining companies, and local people, and and people realized that something needs to be done about that. Some guidelines should be developed project so that the company should be able to communicate with all the other stakeholders, first of all, local population, and also so this was introduced in order to bring more focus to this problem. What is SLO? This is the term that means that a non-formal agreement of local population to develop the project. What I mean by not non-formal, this is not the license for subsoil use issued by the governmental bodies. This license is not issued by a group of population. Actually, this license, so-called license, should be supported by all the local population. And I would like to tell you, since we are talking about issuance of license and all the projects should be supported initially by the local population, it doesn't mean that this support will be continuous. It means this license should be supported. The company should do everything possible to support this license.
We received a very great presentation from Central Asian Metals with the Conrad projects on the work that they're doing with local community, and Gold also provided great example how they pay attention and take efforts to work with local community and support the social license. The question, if anyone would ask the question, how the social license can be measured, it is measured in general in 3 stages. The first, the most negative, is rejection. It is the most unfavorable result of the work when local community absolutely does not support the project, and in this case we have a high risk that the project will not happen. Then we have legitimacy. It's acceptance of a project at legitimacy level and how it is assessed. It is assessed, if you read, assessed through the level where organization plays on the rules of game. This legitimacy includes factors as economic factors, which economic benefits happens for local community. Legal part where the company is compliant with all the requirements of the law, and social, political, what the community in terms of development may gain from this project. And I would also like to tell you that in the process of legitimacy, we observe strengthening of the requirements in Kazakhstan in terms of legislation, and I'll be talking about it in my next slides. The next stage is reliability. Reliability happens when the company is perceived as reliable, that is capable to fulfill all the commitments that it has already taken, and the community does not have an impression that the company says one thing but does another thing. And the highest level of social license is a trust, the ability to be vulnerable, and trust to the company. And here we have a measurement of psychological identification of local community with the project. What does it mean? It means that the project becomes a part of identification of the local communities. People are proud of this project, and they protect this project, and they believe that they have an opportunity of ownership in the project and decision-making together with the company's leadership. Unfortunately, globally, it is rarely achieved, but it is the objective any company can strive to achieve. And now I'll say briefly about legitimacy, about legal aspect of why in Kazakhstan it becomes stronger and stronger. As you know, in 2021, an environmental code was adopted in a new version. If previously we required only one thing, public hearing, and now we have to carry out 4 public hearings, and instructions and requirements have changed, and that's an additional opportunity for the company, either to get certain delay of the project or may not to go for the project. And now one of the projects is modeled in East Kazakhstan. Yesterday the news reported that the mayor of Kazakhstan region made statement on this project, and now we observe a conflict of local community when more than 1,000 persons signed a petition as a gold concentrator has not to be constructed at Moraldi. This issue was also discussed at the first session of the Parliament on access to land allotment. This issue becomes more and more complicated in the progress of development of mining sector in Kazakhstan, because people become more and more informed about their rights, and they have better understanding that they may demand the companies to do certain things, but at the same time people are not well informed in some aspects. And Almat from Grata company yesterday mentioned sometimes we have land users that require percentage of company revenue in exchange of the access to the land allotments. It proves that these people are not informed about the norms as well. They have an idea that they may request these things. Taxes and payments, as we have mentioned at previous sessions and yesterday, taxes are increasing, but at the same time, land duties go directly to rural budgets. And this is good and this is bad at the same time, but the most important thing is what to do with that. When the payments go for rental of land areas to rural budget, we have to understand that the population needs to be informed of that. So as local people should know how this money are used, that the company actually does this payment, that they can change somehow economic situations and settlements for the better. And the last aspect, a liquidation plan should be delivered to local community. Local communities should be aware that the closure plan exists and how the plan and how the company plans the closure of the mining project. And these are the key conclusions. As I promised, I will be very brief. First of all, every company has to understand and define who are the stakeholders of this project. A lot of companies, when we have been working on the project, even did not know who are the land users in the neighboring areas and with whom they are working, what could be the problems or the issues from stakeholders. And this is the first and the biggest mistake. And then it is important to involve stakeholders at the early stage, as early as it is possible, so as to gain the support to the project and not to get to delays in public hearings, and gain the guarantees that the project will happen, really happen. Disclosure of the information, a lot have been discussed about in previous presentation. Evgeny was talking about it, that it is important. And the earlier you start doing this work as well as involvement, the more you will disclose information, the more confidence you'll get from local community. And the first aspect I was speaking that if initially you ensure the support from local community, does not mean that you'll keep on enjoying it during the entire project period. This license needs to be supported. It is a long process, difficult but very important. And I would like to tell you that we cannot get social license with greenwashing. This is information when you seem to be a responsible company, but actually you do not fulfill your commitment on your promises. The organization should behave in a responsible way and take care about employees, environment, local population, and be transparent. And I would like to say, the more work you invest with the work with local community, the less risk project you will face, as you have seen it in the first slide. And if you have any questions, you can approach me and I'll be happy to respond. Sorry for delaying you, but I hope I was within my 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
So, thank you. I hope you've enjoyed the variety of the speeches now.